And good morning and good afternoon. We are here at the Crime Prevention Association of Michigan's Conference 22 here in the beautiful city of Traverse City, and we are preparing with all of our speakers and presenters to have a conversation about their presentations, the work that they're involved with, how our members and those who are inquiring about crime prevention specifics can get access to the information that we're going to hear. Today, I have with me Craig Baumgartner, who is part of the Cyber Security Initiative with the Michigan State Police. And the topic that we're going to focus on is understanding social media and technology and how it affects today's youth. As parents, as community members, as schools, we're all struggling with dealing with a lot of these issues that our young people are bringing to us with their devices in hand. And this is something that I'm excited to not only hear their presentation and to be a part of the conversation with my peers, but also to know that these resources that we're going to share with you today, you will be able to get access to. In addition to, we have a QR code to take you to their website for more information and resources that are available, which is phenomenal. At this time, Craig, talk to us about your presentation. You'll be with Carly, and pronounce her last name again for me.
Petrago.
Petrago, right. So
Yes.
Craig, tell us about your workshop.
Well, what we're going to be going through and doing is trying to break down social media and some of the different apps and some of the different things that the teens are up to now, because a lot of times parents and a lot of our providers are trying to go through and understand what kids are doing, but they've never actually opened up the apps. They've never dived into how an app functions, so they don't have an understanding of what am I supposed to be looking for? What are some of the warning signs? What is it that these kids are doing that they need to be protected from? And by going through and kind of breaking down what's being used and how it's being used, we're able to kind of expand upon the knowledge base for all of our parents and our providers of services, so that when you get approached with, I'm having a problem, how do I go about fixing it? We have a starting point, because one of the things that we like to do is through our ICAC initiative is be able to present to different students some solutions. And one of the solutions being is reach out to a trusted adult. But when that trusted adult is still thinking in terms of a flip phone and not really understanding how things have adapted and grown,
Yeah.
we have some catching up to do for sure.
Mhm. So one of the things that's interesting about these mobile apps, and I've done this in several presentations, is literally put up on the screens the Android and the OIS and the Apple. Here, when you go to the Apple store, parents look at what is that particular app going to do once you
Right.
install it on your phone. All of the things that they have in fine print. Talk to us about why it's so important for parents to understand before they download that app. Read the fine lines.
Oh, absolutely. Because what we look at too is this the true app? Is this another app that's posing as the one we want to be able to go through? Because once you allow access and you grant permissions, it's going through and getting a hold of your contact list. It's going and some of them are reading your text messages. Some
Mhm.
of them are going through and getting your location data, enabling access to your phone to be able to take pictures, and then your microphone. Which, if you're in a social media app, it makes sense that you're going to be able to go through and use maybe your camera, but why is it going through and recording your phone conversations, and what other permissions are really going on? And why is it that a flashlight app that I've downloaded, why does it need my contacts if it's a flashlight app? And that's some of the dangers that we talk about too, where it's expanding upon you really need to know what you're downloading, because they do have apps out there that are very malicious, that all they're there for is the data. They really aren't the social media app you think they are.
Yeah, and I think that's quite amazing. There was one app that I discovered that the image of the app was a calculator, but the actual app was a chat app and texting app.
Correct.
So
Yep.
when the parents would look at the phone, calculator. So they got a calculator up top. They can do their homework and do their math
Sure.
projects and things, and never bother to open up because it's password protected by the
Sure.
user. So even if the parents got the phone and wanted to see, unless they gave them the password, they wouldn't be able to see it.
That's one of the different apps out there. They also use that to be able to contain photos and videos. So if they're chatting online and they take an inappropriate video or inappropriate photo, they will go through and hide it there within those apps.
Hmm. Yeah. So this
And
is something that with what we share when we do presentations as crime prevention practitioners, and the information and resources that we gather from your site as well as with others, it's so important for us to make sure we spend the time to ask parents those questions and let them ask questions once they see the data and to see the
Hmm.
resources that are available for them. Now, one of the things that I find that's really interesting with what we're seeing across the board with all of our students, particularly from your site, there are some things that you recommend with parents. And one of those that I found really interesting was the process of understanding these three tips and three tips to help talk to your kids about online safety. This is at your website. Talk to us about this is the first two and the details, and then we're going to talk about the third one that has more really hardcore details. Talk to us about
Sure.
this specific one.
So, especially with number one, talk to them often. Part of our initiative with ICAC, which is the Internet Crimes Against Children, we're pushing towards having the conversations, even the difficult ones, and beginning to have the conversations with your teens and your preteens. Because if you're not willing to have the talk, your standard sex talk, how is it going to be a situation where if someone's being inappropriate with them online, and something sent to them, if you've never been able to break down that barrier of having those tough conversations and what you expect of them and what they expect of you as a parent, it can be very difficult where you have to break down that barrier of if I don't tell mom and dad, nothing will happen. I'll just bury it. I don't have to have that awkward conversation. Then it never happens, or I never saw the bad things that I've seen because my parents don't want to talk about it and I don't want to talk about it with them.
Mhm.
But number two, differentiating between safe and unsafe websites. It's really a lot of the same conversations that we have about making sure we know what websites you're going to, making sure that kids are aware that if you have safe search settings at school, that you can type in the exact same search in the exact same way, the same letters, and when you hit enter, that safe search function's not at home like it is at school. So a whole different search result might populate, or the difference between .org, .com, .gov, .edu. All those different endings can go through and change the website that you have access to. And a child may not consider it to be, I copied down the website. Did you copy down every letter correctly? And we really
Yeah.
want to make sure that they understand that there are some websites out there that are designed for adults, and there are websites out there designed for kids. And we want to be able to steer them towards making sure and recognizing this is a safe place for me to be, or I think I got off the beaten path and I might need to get back to where I'm on a safe space. And
Yeah.
that's, again, being able to have a good conversation with your parents.
And here's the third one. Teach them good habits.
Well, there's a lot to unpack in here. And this particular third tip is teaching them good habits that are forming their online persona. Because when we think of adults now, back when we were going through school, anything that we put out there on the web really was in its infancy back in the early 1990s, and now leading into the 2000s, where if a student were to go through and try and do some research, they're going to find all of the different resources from all the different years, but they also are going to start finding other people's opinions, and they're going to be out there forming their own opinions. And we really want to make sure that we're structuring their online persona. And this is where our teaching them good habits, because we want them to be able to engage in social media and gaming websites, but we don't want them to get into the dangerous spot of, well, I talked to somebody online and we were in a large gaming website. Oh, I know them. This is a person I'm a friend with.
Mhm.
Well, you know of them, but does that mean that you want to grant them access in terms of your social media accounts where they have access to your daily life?
Yeah.
And that's, don't add those strangers to your social media, and thinking before you post the long-term consequences of posting an opinion on something like Twitter or Facebook, and learning years later that that might not be the same social expectations or social norms anymore. But at the same time, when you put out there hate speech or threats, those things years later can affect jobs. They can affect your ability to
Absolutely
get
can.
into college. And kids aren't thinking of that at 12, but they sure are at 18 when they're getting a lot more confrontation with potential employers and
Yeah.
being vague about where you go live or where you go to school, because being able to know what's in the background, what's behind you, what information am I sharing unintentionally, and that could be very important in terms of giving a stranger a view into your bedroom, or being able to identify where you live based upon other things around your house, and not even thinking about uh, the differences in geographic locations where you're thinking this is only going to be seen by people that I know are around me. How many other followers? How many other people are going to share this video? So there's a lot that we break down with that particular aspect of making sure you're aware of where you go live and what you're sharing, and showing them how to edit their privacy settings, how important it can be. Where I only thought I was posting to the one person. No, you posted that to your entire wall, or
Everybody.
you sent that out to the entire world. That I'm hungry and I'm thinking I want pizza for dinner. Well, the world's great to know that, but a lot of parents, especially, have made those faux pas of replying and thinking you're just replying in a text message. Nope, that went out on Twitter, and now everybody knows.
Everybody knows. Yeah.
Everybody knows, and letting them know about the potential risk of someone creating a profile using their likeness. I know that in the past, social media has tried facial recognition to make sure that it's all matching up, or the person that's posting these things, or your photos can then be used later to create fake accounts. And we are going to be talking about fake accounts too, where sometimes those kids, they like going through and, well, I have my Instagram that I share with mom and dad, and then I have the
Hmm.
Instagram where all my fun's going on, and that's the one mom and dad really need to be looking into.
Yeah. Now, one of the things too that I find interesting is we talk about these habits. When we keep on, in particular, and I talk about location, turning the location app part of your phone and your device off. How important is it that, for these teens who think that their pictures won't be tracked and everything, with these location apps and portions that are on our devices, they literally have devices in stores and everywhere, they track you. So pictures have embedded information in them about where that photograph was taken and how it was taken and where it was taken. How important is that the location is turned off?
Well, because it also gives a time date stamp, it can tell you whether or not this is something that's recent, but that location data can be a major component of where a person is building their community. So if I have a lot of photographs taken in a certain area, I can surmise that's where you live. I would have photographs from, a vacation where I took a large amount, and then I have a whole separate where, oh, I'm just hanging out. Well, if you're just hanging out and I see a lot of posts in a certain coffee shop, or I see a lot at a certain park, or I see that at certain times that it's, after practice, well, now I can tell where your school's at. I'm building right as a.
And Craig, as we were talking about the this format of the applications and the device on our devices with locations, and we were talking about how important that information is, and how to make sure that you protect your device, but also the sharing of information, and not only for our teenagers and family members and children, but all of us. Locations, as that device is on, you're being tracked everywhere you go.
That we are. And
Yeah.
part of that is a way that social media apps work with some of our larger providers for marketing. A lot of times you'll notice that you go into a store and it'll start sending you coupons.
Yes.
And we might have conversations, just sitting around the dinner table about, oh, I saw a brand new fishing pole. Well, then everything on your social media then pops up with advertisements for fishing poles.
Yes.
Part of that is because those apps are using you as your data source, and they're using to market towards you. But that means that's also, again, with the permissions with your microphone. They're always listening. But then when we talk about location data, they're marketing towards where you go and what you're doing, because they can start marketing towards the stores that you go to. But the aspect with our children and the way that they use these apps, when you start taking more and more photographs in a certain area, a predator would be able to go through and surmise where you're living based upon how many photographs you have around a certain park or a certain coffee shop that you happen to go to. So then they start getting your routine down, and it just happens to be a building upon your location data that you have turned on. And there are some apps out there, they're pretty sneaky. They will not work unless you have your location turned on
Yeah.
and you're not really thinking about it. Well, I turned it on to use this app, but I never turned it back off.
Right.
And it continues to record that information.
It's amazing. It is amazing what these apps do and that fine print of all of the things that they want to capture from your device, knowing that
Sure,
you're not going to pay attention. And that's intentional.
it
They
is.
create these apps with literally everything that they want to capture from your device. Every stroke, every click, every search, your pictures. And it's like, why do you need that? I mean, even one of the utilities is like, why do you need access to my photographs? And you provide,
Sure.
energy services to me. What do you need that for? And nope,
Yeah.
don't want your app.
Why does my battery saver need to know what my volume or my location data is? And again, that could be the sign of a malicious app. But at the same time, it's the amount of information that they're collecting to try and provide the best amount of services.
Yeah,
And it's been widespread that if the app itself is free, well, it's you that is the data. You are
yeah.
the product that they're going to try and resell the data that you
It's,
provide.
it's absolutely amazing. Craig, let's look at one more area that has been a part of the great research for all of us who do presentations. And the Pew Research Center 2022 really did some really deep dive that has really provided some really good information. And this particular article, Teens, Social Media and Technology, Emily Vogel's, Risa Gales Wanaki, and David Mazanek, I believe I pronounced that right. They have produced this study that has just recently been published. And I think this is really interesting. And talk with us about, as your presentation and as you're seeing this, what these graphics data tell us with today's youth. And this is nationwide that they're talking about, but you can see the evolution of how this has evolved from Facebook to TikTok and then all of the usage and hard to give up. Talk to us about what we're seeing with these two slides that just came out.
Well, really, the Pew Research Center, this is excellent data. This is information that we constantly are using to be able to understand and focus upon where we're going in trends. And these things do change year to year. And one of those sharp declines was in the use of Facebook. Facebook was the giant monster out there that everybody was trying to compete with. And TikTok, in a short amount of time, has jumped and just skyrocketed in the amount of usage. And they really are working quite hard at trying to find out what is it that we can do to try and be that next trend, be that next trend setter, so that everybody's jumping back on, the setup of the short videos that everybody can be able to share and interact with seems to be the model that we're moving towards. And it goes back into some of the other sciences that we're going to be talking about with dopamine levels and showing the instantaneous gratification that a lot of social media is just thriving upon. And that's some of the deeper science that we're going to get into
Mm-hmm.
is why is this such a phenomenon where, back when adults are now growing up and seeing like, why aren't these kids going outside?
Yeah.
Well, these are why don't they want to go and play the same way we did? This is just really showing how that instant gratification, the amount of information that these kids are getting as they scroll through social media, and we're going to dive into some of the complications with that
Mm-hmm.
because you're seeing things from a funny video to a happy video to a sad posting or upsetting news, and your brain has to comprehend this and go through and change from happy to sad to mad, with a post that I might disagree with and have very strong feelings against. And how are our teenagers building their ability to adapt? And you think of adults and how we sometimes lose our tempers and we sometimes speak without thinking first. We have the ability as an adult to recognize, oh, I made a mistake and I want to backtrack. But as a teenager, with all of their hormones going
Mm-hmm.
and the constant change in mood fluctuations that they're going through as they hit puberty, what does that do when you put it into a social media aspect and seeing how, you know, if this isn't giving me the instant gratification, I'm out. I'll switch. And as this graph constantly shows, you have your YouTube videos that are really high in usage, and YouTube's still trying to figure out a model that they can go off of.
Yes,
But
they are.
how
Yeah.
Tumblr itself, Tumblr just went from being a very large percentage of usage to almost nothing. It's like, well, what happened? They changed what they did. They
Yeah.
stopped allowing nudity, and that just wiped out the amount of users.
That's amazing. They call
It,
them
it really
shorts
was.
on on YouTube now, and everybody's trying to replicate the success of TikTok.
Yes,
With all these shorts. We got one more slide here. Let's go back up to this, and we were just briefly as you were talking about. This is the majority of teens who use YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Snapchat, and that decline. And as you were just talking about that, you can see this in the data that they've collected. Uh, and
absolutely.
and why is this important for us to know as prevention practitioners about
Well,
these different devices and these different social media sites?
it's the way that they're communicating, and it's the way that they're able to go through and interact with each other. So if you're thinking, well, everybody's on Facebook, that's not the case anymore. It's where all the old people are hanging out is on Facebook, and we want to change that mindset where if I want to be current with what's going on, I have to understand how it works and how the technology behind it has changed. And seeing that everybody kind of jumps from one thing to the next, and you have to realize that if you're currently using a system that is like Facebook, that it's dependent upon user input, you might have to change your settings, and you might have to change your perception of what is current and what is currently being used by our teens, because they're not going to jump on Facebook to follow your page anymore. They want to have something that's more Instagram, and it's constant information about what's new. You only get my attention for today. You're not going to have my attention every day, so it has to be interesting.
Yeah. Now this is the last slide there with the Pew study that I found really interesting, and parents and everyone. Well, wow, how are they and where are they at online?
Oh, for sure. This really just kind of breaks down where is it that they're actually using this. And another interesting one is the time of day that they're active. And because we always think, well, my kids are getting on late at night. Well, there is a percentage that are doing that, but a lot of times it's more your mid afternoon that we're finding a lot more usage. And it's where it's that time between when mom and dad are getting home and I'm already home from school that they're left alone. But seeing the most usage is at school, it's like, well, yeah, that's where the social aspect of the apps, and I'm recording what's going on in my life. And so they're still getting on in between classes, in the hallway, right after school, right after practice, or in the middle of class. They're
Yeah.
sitting there texting, and they're using their phones. And we always talk about how your teacher would say, you're never going to have a calculator in your pocket. You're always going to need to have these things. And we have our phones now, but that's also where they have all their data, where the teachers have recognized that we might have to go through and let's get on Google, let's do some research. And rather than drag everybody down to the library, get out your phones, let's look this up, let's
Yeah.
continue our
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah. I think it's fascinating how this technology and these devices has changed so much of what we do and how we do it. One of the things that I find really fascinating with we see it in all of the ransomware attacks and the things that we're putting out to employers and schools, not opening suspicious links and emails that might have embedded information in them. And I think that as we move forward with this whole process, this is something that we continually look at. How do we continue to add all of the resources and awareness? And one of the things that I recently began to do, because as we put out crime prevention resources and information, we would always put the hyperlink in and send that out in mass to
Yep,
everybody. And the advent of the QR codes has made this process so much more safer for consumers. When they see the information, they can hover over it with their phone and their camera and then just click it, and it will take them directly to the site. And we've done that with all of the interviews that we're doing with our presenters, as opposed to putting in a long 30, 40 character hyperlink.
yep.
Put the QR image and let them go and find that information.
Absolutely, because we've also had it too, where we have a lot of information that's printed out, and rather than killing all these trees to try and give you a big, huge packet of paper, Here's a QR code. I want you to be able to go to my resources and print off things that you think are relevant to your situation. And the other half is I've encountered a lot of times too when we do our outreach and we set up a booth. People are like, well, I don't have that app to be able to read a QR code. It's a lot simpler now. You just have to
Yeah.
open up your camera app and make sure that people understand this is how easy it is.
Yeah.
And we want you to be able to have these. And so we might teach them how to use a QR code as well.
Right. Well, Craig, this has been really great to be able to share with you this information that we're going to have at our conference and the presentation and the content. But just from a personal perspective and the things that you've been working on, how important has this work been for you?
Well, for me personally, it's going out there and trying to make that difference in not just the youth of today, but it's setting that goal of making sure we have a safer place for everybody in the future. The task force that we're a part of definitely the age range is anywhere from infant to senior citizen that we're trying to get out there and help. But the focus right now, especially, is on the kids that are at risk, which is definitely the ones of school age, where we know that they have the ability to get online, and we want to get out there and help. I have two teenagers at home, and I know that I'm constantly asking them questions of, well, so what are you guys into? What is
Yeah.
new and
Yeah.
upcoming? How far past have I gotten where it's like, so you guys are still doing that ticky tacky thing, right?
It's amazing the transition that all of them have moved to, that we as parents and with young adults, looking at how do we use this technology, and how is it that we can still communicate. And for parents, it's really opened up, you're never away from your child. And I know that
Right,
during emergencies, we have a lot of parents who will text their children when we have school incidents to see what's going on and are you okay? And
right.
that has been one of the important processes of having these devices.
And being able to set up mass alerts so that the school, on the other hand of that, is sending things out so that everybody's aware of what's going on
Mhm.
rather than create confusion and panic. And it's helpful and hurtful where everybody knows what's going on, but at the same time, we want to make sure we're all on the same page. And part of what we're going to go out there and talk about is virtual reality and how that is changing with social media and gaming
Yes.
apps, and how virtual reality is going to be the new go to, and really how things are expanding and changing. And even legislatively, how are our laws trying to catch up? Because a lot of these laws were written years and years ago, and our
Yes, they were.
technology doesn't keep the same pace. And it's really confusing. And it's tough for parents to understand, what can I do? What are my options if I do find something that has crossed a line or I feel uncomfortable with? Because I know a lot of times too, parents are, well, this image was sent to my kids, and I want blood. I
Yeah.
want to see someone punished for this.
Right.
It's like, well, it's a lot more complicated
Yes, it
than
is.
just pointing a finger. And what we have to do in the background is a lot of effort and a lot of work. But part of that too is, what can parents do to help us? Because the first reaction always is, oh, delete everything, burn the phone, just get rid of
Yeah.
it all. It's like,
Yeah.
well, that doesn't help me as an investigator backtrack and be able to find somebody responsible to make sure that we're making a difference and having a consequence, as well as preventing it from happening again in the future.
Mhm. Well, I'll tell you, this has been amazing information. And one last tip for the practitioners when we go back to our communities and sharing this information. The website content that we've shared from your location and that's posted, how important is it for us to be able to stay on top of these types of emerging trends in order to work with our communities and respond to parents and community concerns? How often is the website updated, and explain to us how important that content is?
Especially with the ever changing aspect of the content of apps and updates. We have to constantly go back and forth. We do update that website every few months. We're constantly revolving through and seeing, is this app still current? Is this something that we need to update in how it functions? Or is it something that we have to update in terms of it's no longer relevant? So if you look at protecting young eyes is great. We have a plethora. There's so many different websites out there.
Yeah.
Some of them are showing you exactly what needs to be presented and how to have those tough conversations.
Yes.
Sometimes it's not just talking about the app, but it's having a conversation about what they're seeing on those apps. and we want to make sure we're out in front of it. But NetSmarts is another one that is
Hmm.
constantly being updated year to year, and they're trying to stay ahead of it. And what we're also using is a lot of our presentations to the schools is we're talking with the kids and we're trying to see what is it that they're truly interacting with, because we also have to really question that data.
Yeah.
We're look at the Pew Research, and we talk a lot about what is it that the kids are checking the boxes on. What is it that they're wanting us to hear? Like, I'm just telling you what you want to know.
Yeah.
It's not actually what I'm doing. So we have to have those conversations
Yeah.
as well, so we're not fooled by saying, oh yeah, this is where all the kids are hanging out. Nobody's there.
Right.
And we're constantly checking to make sure that it's relevant. But we do update it, and that's again why the QR code is a great helpful tool. So instead of printing off things that become outdated or putting up slides, and everybody will ask you, "Well, can I get a copy of your presentation?" This information is current today. Tomorrow might not be relevant.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Craig, it's been my pleasure and my honor to have this conversation with you as we prepare for sharing with our crime prevention practitioners across the state of Michigan, and for those who are interested in this topic. And all of us are immensely interested in this topic because it's coming to us every day, particularly for
Absolutely.
our young officers and those who may not have all the experiences of going through various workshops. They can go to these resources and get the data, and being able to refer parents and community members to where reliable resources are. Again, thank you so much. We got information that we're going to put up again regarding the access and the QR code to the Cyber Command site for the Michigan State Police. And please feel free to share this information with others, and this information that we're going to be providing to our members at the 2022 Crime Prevention Association of Michigan Conference. Craig, again, thank you so much. Looking forward to seeing you guys.
Perfect. Thank you so much.